In this example, we're going to learn how to use the low-level API to execute a particular workflow definition in real-time mode. So let's take a look at one of our existing workflows. Let me open this one that says add two numbers form. This is the workflow that we used in the microservice example. If you look at this example, we've defined a couple of different variables, num1, num2, and sum. And this expression evaluation step basically adds num1 and num2 and puts the sum of that into the variable called variable sum. Now let's go ahead and take this particular workflow and let's go ahead and use this workflow to execute this in real time. And I'm going to open up Visual Studio and show you how to do that. Now that we have Visual Studio open, let's go ahead and create a new project. In this case, we're going to create a Windows Forms application. And in this case, I'm going to select Windows Forms Desktop here. And let's go through the different choices we have. And if you look through this list of different types of projects, we're going to create a Windows Forms app .NET framework. And we're going to add that, and let's call this app called Test Low Level API. And I'm going to create using the .NET Framework 4.2. I think I already have a project called that, so I'm going to create one called just Low Level API. Once the project is created, let's go ahead and put a button from the toolbox. And let's set some properties on this button, and let's call this button btn execute. Or actually, the text, let's call it execute. And we're going to give the name btn execute. And if we double click on this button, it will give the event handler for this particular button. And let's go ahead and do a few more things. Since I want to connect to my database or the workflow database, I need a couple of things. I need to use the API. So one of the easiest ways to add the API to your project is use the NuGet. So we're just going to go into the project and say manage NuGet packages. And if we go to browse and search, we're going to type in Flourite. Yes, the Flourite API package should come up. We're going to go ahead and install this. Once we install this, you will see that it automatically adds all the necessary DLLs for us. So if you look under references, you'll see all the required DLLs for Flourite being automatically added. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add app. Actually, we already have an app.config. We are going to add a few things into this. I want to add a connection string to the Flourite database, so I can just load that from the configuration. And I've kind of stored this in a little notepad file here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to paste it here. So this is the connection string to my database. And I'm going to also add another reference here. This is to the system.configuration, so that we can read this configuration info. Okay. And now let's start coding. First thing we want to do is get the connection string. So let's put let's use the using system.configuration. And we're going to use the configuration manager. And we're going to read connection strings to read the connection string. And if you look at the app.config, we give the name connect string. And dot connection string. This will get us the connection string from the configuration. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the API. We're going to say using cdev workflow.de API. And since we want to get the workflow definition, we're going to create the DE design object. So let's do DE design or design equals new DE design. First thing is we need to pass in, we're going to use a different constructor. So on this particular constructor, we need to pass in the connection string. And we're going to pass in the external username. In this case, let me log in as admin. First thing we want to do is we want to get the workflow definition. So we're going to say DE workflow definition or def equals or design. Get workflow definition. Let's do get definition. We're going to get it using name. And let's go and copy the name. So I want this add two numbers form. Once we have got this, next thing we're going to do is we're going to ask for the UI model. And in order to do that, the UI model comes from the low-level API. The CDEV DE API is the high-level API. Now we're going to go, say, using the CDEV workflow decision engine. So we're going to say CLS UI model dot def get UI model. Okay, we want it to get the configuration also at the same time. So next we're going to say use the engine. So we can say cls engine.oEngine equals new engine, and we can pass in the UI model. Okay. Looks like we are missing some parameters here. Let's take a look and see. String instance ID. I'm going to pass in blank for the instance ID. Error provider should be optional. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and pass in error provider also. Do that. And next thing we're going to say execute the engine, but we want the workflow to execute from the beginning, from the first step or the start step. So we're going to say engine start process from start. And in this case, since we have to provide two variables and their values, we need to give some variables also. So what we're going to do is, let me just use null here, and let's go ahead and define some variables and values. So let's do a hash table. Needs to be defined using statement. we're going to pass in num1 with a value of, let's say, 56, num2 with a value of 45. And we're just going to pass that into this particular method was, and you can see that the engine will return a status back or a boolean. So we're going to say bool status, and that's it. This is going to execute this particular workflow in real time. And next thing is we're going to do is we're going to we can also get the status. What is the engine status? So it returns the execution status. We are also going to tell one more thing to the engine. We're going to tell that you want to execute this in real time. So I believe it's execution mode equal to execution mode dot real time mode. And since the sum, variable sum, is going to hold the value, the sum of num1 and num2, now we want to get that value. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask for the variable collection. So we're going to say O engine we can actually get back the model, or we can also we'll just get back the model. And from the model, we can say get variable or get master variable sum, which should return us a CLS variable. And if we inspect, or let's do, if you look at the value of that variable, I'm just going to say string var value. You see var value, that should have the value of the variable. So let's go ahead and execute this. I'm just going to put a breakpoint so we can step through this code. I'm going to go ahead and say start. We go ahead and click on this execute button. First thing we're going to do is get the connection string. And you can see that this has a connection string. Let's go ahead and create the design object. Then once that is done, let's get the definition object using the design. And if you look at the definition object, we have a definition object here. So you can see definition ID, all this information came through. Now we're going to ask for the model. Now it should give us a model object. You will see within the model also we have all these other things that are within. Okay. And we're going to provide the model to the engine. So we should have a new engine. We're going to tell the engine we want to run it in real-time mode. Here we're going to construct the variables and their default values for num1 and num2. And next we're going to ask to start processing from the start step. At this point, the workflow should get executed in real time. And we can also get the status. And if you look at the status, you will see that the status is finish. Okay. Once we have done that, what we're going to do is we're going to now get the UI model back. And then we're going to ask for a variable called sum. As you can see, variable has a sum. And the variable value is 101 because 45 plus 56 is 101. And you can get the value. And that's simple as that, how to execute a workflow in real time using the API.